continue building our chat app that we built in our second week of our course. Okay, we're gonna take a broad look into that. Okay, and see what things we can change in order to make it more scalable and more add more user experience to the our users. Okay, so I have my app ready. Okay, let me run it and see the output. Okay, so I'm sure you all might be aware of about this welcome screen. This is a temporary welcome screen where I've put a text field for some validations for emails, phone numbers. Okay, but that's out of scope for time being. We're gonna just go and proceed ahead. Okay, now till now I am safe to assume that you all have might been using ChatGPT and other GPTs for your day-to-day search and queries. Okay, so we are trying to build the same application. Okay, where we're gonna chat with GPT. We put our queries and get some output. Okay, so this channel screen will list down all the channels specific to your threads. Okay, and in specific channels we continue with our chats. Okay, so I'll show you a demo. So if I hit the plus button, the fab button in the channel screen, we come to the chat screen. Okay, here I can say hello, I wanted to learn Kotlin multi platform, from where I can start. Something like uh, to our context. Okay, if I hit send, okay, this will be sent to the Google server. Okay, to our generative model. Okay, it will take time. Okay, but you can see we are able to generate some content which is coming from the model itself. Okay, in the last class we seen how it was working. Okay, so we have a response from the model. Okay, time being we are missing with the loading indicator, but that's not the major part of this session today. Okay, now I have asked this a question. Okay, let me ask one more. uh how can I start with Flutter, and according to you, which one is better? Okay, though this question doesn't have any answer, the use case depends, the tech stack depend upon the use case. But for time being, I just wanted to showcase you that whatever we are sending, okay, whatever the uh, text we are sending, let us see the output. Okay, so the model has given us with the details of starting with Flutter. Okay, so my point here being is that whatever the text we are sending, it is being sent to model as a history. Okay, and based on that context and the data it's been trained upon, it try to give us the as valid as responsive output as possible. Okay, so here we have to understand that maintaining a history and providing it to the model is one of the key things that we have to do in our application. Okay, now if I uh, turn off the internet. Okay, let me go back as well. You can see one conversation has been recorded. Okay, now let me kill the app and start it again. Okay, ideally this login screen should not come, but that's for other uh, day. Okay, now if I go to here, you can see all the data has been persisted. Right, now my app is somewhat a offline first approach app. whatever data we are fetching from the network, it is coming and getting saved into the database. Okay, and I'm able to uh, read it and see through the result even later as well without the internet as well. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share you one more feature that we have integrated previously. If I might assume that Harsh might be knowing that previously we used to have a horizontal pager where we used to change from text based GPT response, sorry, text based prompt to image based prompt. Okay, so what I did, I have integrated all those things into a single screen only. Okay, now here I can select multiple images. Okay, and here I can say the prompt that, hey, please let me know if all the images here are the same and belongs to a cricket ground. Okay, matlab I am just testing the GPT while giving four different image to GPT to response back with its output. Okay, we are know that this is a rugby field, this is a football field, this is a pool table, this is a snooker table. But I have kept the combination of green and blue colors in order to confuse GPT and check whether we are able to get some uh, expected output or not. But the key point here is we are doing this prompt based on images. Okay, so if I provide the image, okay, it will take a time based on number of images we give. It take respective time. See, so these images are not all images of the same cricket ground. The first image is a rugby field, the second one is the football pitch, the third one is a pool table, and the fourth one is a snooker table, right? So with this thing, we are 100% sure that the GPT or the Gemini SDK that we are using is taking all the image, processing it, compiling the result, and giving us the output. Okay. Now, if I go back, you can see I am able to showcase the UI something like this based on the how I started the conversation, so that in future, if you wanted to have a more question based on the same context, you can use this thread instead of creating another one. Okay, so with the same drill, let's keep the internet off. Okay, and if I go to here, you can see my data has been persisted now with the images as well, right? Okay, now now being that said, for me, creating this application, going through the code, going through the docs, and building all those stuff will take lots of time. And in return, there might be possibilities that we don't learn anything much. Okay, so for today, you all gonna be building this application. Okay, we're gonna go step by step. Okay, from data layer to network layer to UI layer. Okay, and we try to build this uh, application through our system design first. Okay, we're gonna first design it how it gonna be, the data flow gonna be, and then we will see the solution of how I did it and what things we have missed. Okay, so I will request Harsh to unmute yourself and take your time. Try to think, if you have to build this application, how you gonna be proceeding. I will try to document it here. We're gonna discuss it together. The goal is to make this app uh, as much as simple as possible. Okay, so Harsh, you can go ahead. You can start with your inputs. We're gonna keep building on that, and after like brief discussion, having few dis- uh, few approaches tried and other stuff, we're gonna then see the solution of how things work. Okay.
So first of all, we can start with a welcome screen where we will take the name of the person.
Acha. So we are starting with the UI first. Okay. Okay. So you are seeing with the welcome screen. Okay. I think this stuff is very easy. We just put the welcome text here. Okay. Next.
After which we will take the username, it's the text field input beside it.
Okay, username taken, Gmail ID taken. We are able to log in successfully. Okay,
After which
next.
we will need navigation to navigate up to another screen.
Correct, correct. So, uh, requirements we can say. Okay, we have the UI. Okay, the navigation system. Okay, you can go more depth into the navigation of what parameters we will be setting.
We
How
will be
we,
taking arguments
mhm,
of the
arguments.
name field, and we will no, we will only take the name as an argument, and we will use nav graph and nav host and other things of the navigation system.
What will be the use of the name field? Matlab, what we gonna do with this name argument?
When the user is going to type his name inside the text field input in the welcome screen, we will
Uh-huh.
take that name for the user, which we will display in the chat screen when we will ask something or
Okay. So you are seeing once we have entered the welcome screen, once we have entered the channel screen. Oh, my bad. Just a second. So this is the channel screen and this is our chat screen. Okay. So whenever a user will type something, instead of user, we're gonna showcase this name property here, right?
yes, sir.
But don't you think that will be a little tedious approach? What if we put this um argument thing or the profile data in a specific shared preference or data flow or maybe in DB?
Yes, that would be better.
Okay, so we have put it in a database. Okay, so how gonna you will be designing your database for, let's say,
If
let's
I
go
have to,
with the profile.
if I for profile, I can for login and other things, I can use Firebase, uh, and inside it, Firebase Firestore for saving, and for local data, for locally saving it, we can use room database, which is SQLite.
Got it, got it. But my question is, how gonna we uh like I am able to log in via, let's say, XYZ service, okay? But now I wanted to store that profile inside a DB. So to store things inside a DB, I need an entity, right? So how I'm gonna design the profile entity? What field it should keep?
First of all, we will have a data class in which we will keep the name parameter
The name
of
parameter.
the, and we can check the Boolean parameter if he is logged in or not. Sorry, no, this will not. We can check other parameters such as Gmail ID or other credentials,
Email. Okay.
password.
No, you definitely don't want to store a password in your database of a user. That might be a very wrong practice, right? What a user is storing as a password in your application, you don't want to save it in any case, right? That password will go into the backend, which will be encrypted, and then only we gonna proceed. I think the password option should not be here. I think an ID should be there. uh, from which we gonna identify different users. Like if I have two Gmail account, same name, uh, and if I do operation based on the name, then the things can get little tricky. But if I have ID, if niket dot gen 1 have id 1 and niket dot gen 2 have an id 2, I think that would be more precise way to go forward.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So we have defined our id, or profile entity. I think for this we are good to go. Is the id will be the primary key here?
Obviously, because it is a unique ID, different for every entity and for every element.
Got it, got it. Okay. So for time being, we are able to log in, okay, create the UI of the welcome screen and save the entity to the DB. Okay. So what should be the next step? Like if you are building this application, uh, what gonna you do the next?
Another main thing could be the networking of the app, where I will access the model and use the same send and the data for which I will also need permissions to.
Okay. So you wanna set up the network layer now, right? And inside that, um this is done. Now navigation system done. Uh, Database. I assume you have created an entity of type, say, let's say profile or user. Okay. Now we wanted to set up a network layer, right? Now what should be inside a network layer?
First of all, we are using an API of Gemini, so
Mm-hmm,
we will create an interface for that API for accessing its elements. For
mm-hmm. So generative Gemini SDK Android. Okay. So let's have a look into its documentation and try to understand it more. We want to have a look for the Android. Okay. Uh, cool. So Gemini provide us lots of features where we can have a chat feature and a image text input to a text output, right? So there might be these cases that the models that we create, okay, um, for those two feature might be different. Okay. So what I mean by that, uh, let me have a look. Gemini. Huh. So as you can see, we have different Gemini versions that we wanted to have, okay, for different use case. Okay. So now think wisely that if I wanted to have both the feature in my app, I wanted to create two kind of uh, models, right? So will it contains two interface here?
no, sir, in a single interface, we can add two classes about the both different APIs.
Okay, let's say we have a interface. Okay, let me define an interface here. So What should we give this interface a name?
Gemini API.
Gemini API. Okay. Now, uh, what should be the method the interface would be containing?
First method could be about this could be a GET request to get the first of all it should be a request will be sent. So we will create a method for sending the request about the question that the user asked.
Okay, so you wanted to have a method something like send message where the input will be of type string, right?
Yes,
Okay. And what should be the output here?
the output could be the status code, or we can add a response for we can create additional two methods inside it for on success listener or non failure listener if it gets succeeded or if it failed.
Hmm. But if you see the documentation, uh, I believe you have attended the Gemini chat application session before, where I discuss about this Gemini model in a detail. If not, no issue. Generally, what happens? Uh, this generative um, model. Uh, let's see if they have provided it here. Okay. Generally, this generative model or this model gives us the output of type generative model response. Okay, whether you are sending a text or whether you are sending a uh, uh, image request. Okay, because it also contains the text inside it. So for time being, we can say the output will be something like a response. Oh, uh, generative response. Okay, I think we are safe to say that. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So this is now regarding the message setup. Now what should be the method for image setup?
For that, we will need bitmap conversion.
Mm-hmm.
So we can create a method for send image, which will be an input from bitmap, and it will also return generative response. But I'm not sure about the image, like how I will return.
No problem, no problem. Let's assume we are some way able to grab the code for converting something to bitmap. Let's assume. Okay. But in any way you will not do in the network layer. If you wanted to change something, let's say um, input image to a bitmap, we're gonna either do in the UI layer or somewhere in the repository, right? But currently we are talking about the network layer. Can we say here we can have a method of something like send image prompt, okay, which have a input image of type bitmap, okay, and a text prompt of type input, which will be a string. In any case, we might be getting a generative response. Are we safe to say this?
Yes, sir.
I'm building I'm building this application based on your inputs. Okay, so let me know. Cool. Cool. So will it be sufficient for our network layer, or we wanted to do something else from our network?
And this could be sufficient after which we can create the responses. And but we also need the receive message method where we could render the messages. But that we could do in the UI layer too. I'm not
Correct.
sure.
Correct. So if you are see, I will suggest you to build this application, divide things into three layers: the view layer, the repository layer, and the data layer. Okay. So if once the data layer is been done, you can design the repo followed by the UI, or you can start with the UI, then repo, then the data layer. It's up to you. Okay. Now, in my application, I haven't done any authentication. Okay, but if you are building this application and putting the authentication, you will definitely want to have an interface or some network request for regarding the uh, firebase things as well, right?
Yes.
Cool. So for time being, we can ignore the firebase thing, and that's not the important concept here, or the scope of uh, today's call. Okay, we just wanted to rebuild our app showcase uh, while discussing with the team. Okay, so okay, our network layer is done. Okay, what should we do next, Harsh?
Up next, we can add dependency injection pattern in it, where we can create a repository and an app module.
Okay, so you are saying the network layer is done. Now we gonna set up the DI pattern, right?
Yes.
Or basically set up the DI layer while providing the network layer only. Okay. Do we need to provide anything else?
No.
Okay. What about the database that you have created for this user thing?
Yes. The rule D.
Correct. So we gonna provide the database object as well. Okay. Cool. Now DI is set up, network layer is set up. What should we do next?
And then we can work on the UI and view models. Sorry, view models.
UI and the view models. Okay. Okay. Let me know how should I proceed. We are now setting up the view model. Okay. Go ahead.
And for rendering the parts, we will use UI, and inside that UI, like you can see different UIs for the screen, like for the welcome screen and other things. And the core business logics will be held in view models.
This is a very abstract thing, Harsh. For system design, we wanted to go as deep as possible. Okay. So let's say I wanted to create this UI where the user text will be shown here. The images, sorry, the user text will be shown here. Okay, the model response will gonna show here. Okay, and uh, the same with the images should will also be come into this column part. So how gonna we design this UI part as well?
We can use lazy column for that.
Okay, nice. So,
And we can also use scaffold.
okay. So should I name that composable to chat screen?
Yes,
Cool. So chat screen for time being is nothing, not taking any parameter. For time being, we have wrapped it in a scaffold. Okay. Now the scaffold contains what? A column.
a column with. We can also add, if we want, we can add a top bar inside it, and inside, with the top bar, we can have a sticky top bar, and and in the content we can add uh, in the daisy column.
Okay. In the body, we will provide the lazy column. You're saying, right? Instead of a column, right?
Yes,
Cool. Now the lazy column will contain what? What will be the things inside an item? Uh, Item lambda here.
there could be uh, text, which will be the chat response. We can
It should be a
there
it should be a text with the response coming from a message, or it should be uh, a composable, a custom composable, which based on different output will do different things. For example, if I show you the app, here you can see if it is user, I am seeing user at the top here with this different color of the uh, text. Okay, some images is also being there, and the response that I'm got getting from model, I am marking it as model. But in future, let's say you wanted to showcase um, date here, or let's assume you wanted to showcase some tick mark that says that the message has been sent, it is generating or something. So basically they are more than just text states, right? There are different states that we wanted to handle over there, right? And for that, just a text composable will be not enough, I believe. Hello.
we could add a card into it for that UI of the chat box.
Correct. So let's say the custom composable have the all the necessary stuff needed in order to build this UI. Okay.
Then we can write the logic of the view models of the app. Like we have implemented chat screen, and we have no, sorry, we have to also think about the history screen.
Correct. Correct. Now you are getting to the point. So we have a chat view model, okay, which will contains the state that we need to showcase in the uh, our composable. So how should we proceed here?
First of all, we will look at the main logics of the app. As we can see, that those are the list which is loading the lazy column one. We can write a function for it inside this view model.
Okay, you are saying some loading mechanism. Okay. loading mechanism did. But you gonna load on what basis? On the network call?
On if we, inside the interface which we implemented, if we gonna receive a response which is successful, on that basis I will render it.
Okay. So you gonna render things over here, you are saying. Or uh, basically based on the success or the failure response, you gonna uh, either put the loading mechanism to true or false. But at where you gonna consider that the thing is success or failure? Is it in the repo layer, view model layer?
Inside that repo, if we would create the responses, we can add a try catch block in which we can add errors and exception handling.
Okay, so now we are coming to the repo layer. Okay, uh, so this repo will be just a class or an implementation of an interface?
If we want to test the fake repository, act it as a fake repository which we can test later on, we can create it a class.
Hmm. So we can create a class if we wanted to test it, not interface. Hello.
Yes,
Okay, so I've created a repo. Now, in order to uh, have a success or let's say failure response, this repo might be dependent upon some other dependencies. So, according to you, what that should be?
the API interface which we implemented. So,
Okay, so the uh, Gemini API. Okay, cool. So now you wanna create some methods over here, or you gonna implement a interface to override those methods? Hello. Hello, Harsh, am I audible?
sir, not sure about this. That we can also write the function directly instead of overriding it. We can write direct functions such as the function which we have, the two functions which we have named in the interface. And instead of up there, we have only like written it like in a single line. Like we can add much more logic and like clarity in it. Like we can add the responses and the limits and other things such as the return type and all things.
Okay, so you're saying not to proceed with the interface, just create some functions and then we can call it over there, right? So I can say suspend fun. Um, you are saying send message one, which will have the input as we have discussed with the return type, generative response, and here we just gonna call the Gemini API dot send message, right? And we'll put the input here, and we're gonna return the output, something like this, and we are good to go, right? Similar things for the image part as well, right?
Yes.
And here you were saying that you will make it wrap it inside the try catch block. Uh, try catch block. If some exception get caught, we will return the failure status from here. Failure state basically. Here we gonna pass the return the success state, right?
Yes.
Okay, in order to do so, you were also mentioning that we need to wrap the generative response in our wrapper class of response wrapper class, right? Something like this. Because if your return type is, let's say, generative response, which is a input, which is the class given by the Gemini SDK itself, and you wanted to have a more control over how we use this response class, you have wrapped it inside a response, let's say, a sealed class, which has success failure states. Okay, so when it comes the success, you return the response dot success with the data. If it comes failure, you return failure dot error with the output as for this method, and it gonna be same for the message as well, right? Same for the image as well.
Yes, sir.
uh, so I think we are good to go. uh, हमने login किया, we have a profile, we send a message, we got some output, we are able to showcase it. But if I kill the app and come again, and now I don't have an internet access, do you think that I might be going to see all the uh, input and output that I've done in last 2 3 days, or let's say in last 5 minutes,
No, until we save it.
until we.
Save it inside
Okay,
the room DB.
so how gonna we design our room DB to save those things?
Uh, what we can do, we can have an entity which we have up there, and for that entity, uh, we will have a data class which will take those parameters, and we can create a database entity, database within which we can annotate it with roomdb, and after which we can create the functions, and we can create a DAO, which is data annotation object, and we can say
Got it, got it. But let's start with the entity. So what should I give the entity? I understood you what you mean by creating a room database, injecting it, creating a DAO. That's all is I'm able to understand. But the main thing is how gonna you design the entity?
that will be a data class which we can name the uh, Gemini user, and within it there will be a primary key, which will be the use.
Gemini user. We are already
Y-
saving the profile.
okay, so we can just simply declare the data class about the okay. We can create we can have the details which we want to save in the
Mm-hmm. So what should I name it?
user
User we have already did it in profile.
chat
Correct. So let's say we have defined chat. Okay. Now what property the chat might having?
text. Sorry, that will we have primary key and two column
What
infos.
should be the primary key?
It will be the user ID which we will use. are we gonna take in the profile?
uh, okay, let's take a scenario. You have sent a message. This chat object that you are referring here, if have a key of user. Okay, this model, let's say we are not sure, but for the next message, the identity of this chat message will gonna be the user again. I think that will leads to problem. We need to give some unique IDs to each message, right?
Yes,
So can we use uh, instead of chat, can we call it, let's divide into more smaller parts. Let's say we just wanted to take care of message for time being. Okay, so let's say we name it as message entity. This sounds good.
yes,
So there will be an ID which will be of int type, and because we are using the room db, we can make it uh, primary key, and we can use the auto generate functionality over here. This sounds good.
yes.
Okay, now think of, apart from id which we're gonna use internally for our computation, what this message should be containing.
Content
Okay, content of type string.
of string.
Okay, next. Now you have said content, the content might be coming from the user or the model. Can we make it something like uh, from whom kind of uh, property which will be an enum, which check whether the message is from the user or the model, or it can be error.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's next?
Um, I think that might be the
We
this
can
one.
also save date and time.
Yes, sir. Timestamp.
So we can make it timestamp here. Cool. uh it will be of type long. Okay, now you might have seen me doing this thing. Coming to this conversation, I can see there is no message which relates to the image here, though my image is also been saved into the db. Here I have image, but not that the text that was from the previous conversation. So my point is, you somehow wanted to connect it with the channel id, right? That if this message belongs to this channel or not, right? How gonna you filter that out?
Sir, we can use DAO within which we can add functions to that.
Okay, let's say I've created a DAO. What should be the uh, what should be the query here? How gonna you filter that out?
We can add the list select star from.
Mm-hmm.
the channel name and where the um, from channel name we can also put that.
But we haven't defined channel here.
We can define channel
Okay, we can define channel name of which type.
string.
Okay, but now if you see my app, this channel also contains some data. The image from the conversation, the first message, and some uh, and the time of this message as well. And in
Um,
here, you just wanted to filter out the channels.
okay, so this could be there is a title which is string. There is a content which is string. There is an image which could be an int for now. There is a timestamp which could be of date and time as well.
So you're saying we can basically have another entity which will just maintain the channels.
Yes,
Okay. So at the rate entity which will be named as, let's say, channel entity, right? And here you are saying that it will contain the content, okay, of type string, the timestamp, okay, of type long, and
image and title, image of type int and title of type string.
image of type string, title of type string. Okay, but don't you think that most of the content that you are saving here, that is the timestamp, is based on the message, the image is based on the message, though you have not, we haven't put image here, okay, we haven't put image here, but still we are referring, and the title is also coming from the content itself, okay. So don't you think that you can create a relation between them instead of creating the other identities which contain the same data?
Yes, so that would be better.
How can we then do that? We learned about SQL, where we learned about foreign keys.
Yes, sir.
So how can we define it here? Okay, let's say we have defined a foreign key with the name of message ID, okay, which the ID will be of type int, coming from this entity, okay. Now you would also like to give an primary key to this channel entity as well,
Yes, sir.
okay. ID of type int, of type primary key of type, it should be auto generated or not.
Yes, it will auto generated.
Okay, but with this thing there is a catch, uh, that in the fab button, when you click this fab button, okay, while generating while generating a new channel, okay, you have put it in auto generate, you have done something, and now you wanted to insert some last message id or the other stuff into it, then how gonna you check if, basically how gonna you know on what id you are inserting the data into? My my question is that you don't have id, you wanted to update the channel entity. uh how gonna you do that if you make this id a auto generated one?
So we will not make it auto generated.
Okay, let's not make it auto generate. Okay, so are you seeing that we're gonna provide our unique id from the outside of this entity?
Yes, we can add the name of which we can add in the tab if a dialog appears or something. No, sorry, inside that uh, chat.
Or better, can we instead of making it something like int, can we make it a uuid type and define it as primary key, and whenever we tap on this fab button and whenever a send message is done and successfully a send message has been received, we create a channel with our own unique id.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we gonna handle the new channel id via that way, and we gonna, once the channel id is been done with the reference to message id of this message, we can always extract the data out of it, right? Now coming to the DAO part, let's say we are inserting image continuous inserting message continuously. So what should be the return type of this get chat method? It should be a list of message entity. This this work this looks good.
Just a list of the message input.
Or it should be something like flow of list of message.
Yes, sir.
Why we are using flow? According to you, what's benefit this flow is adding?
So as we have not studied it, we are not sure about it, but I guess it does this something asynchronously or anything else.
Okay, in case if you are not aware, generally if we go uh, into the documentation, the room database, the primary feature of room database is that it supports coroutines and flow. Okay, so if we define a query with the flow, what happens whenever this entity get changed, where this DAO is associated with, where this entity gets changed, whatever the latest data we get, we are able to fetch it in our repository, and once we get into the repository we can show into the UI layer. Okay, so in our case, whenever we are sending a message, okay, we are saving into the database, right? Once the database is saved, then we are loading the data from the database, putting into the repository, and then from taking there to the UI layer. So in that way we make our app offline based. So instead of just fetching from the network service, we are fetching it from the network service, then putting it into the local service, that is into our database, and then fetching all the things from the database only. Okay, so our source of truth always remains our database. Okay,
Yes, sir.
cool. So this is our database. Okay, uh, this database contains lots of tables inside it. Okay, where we are putting our message channels profile. Okay, and created a relation between them. Okay, based on the user we're gonna fetch the channels, and based on the channels we're gonna fetch the messages, right? Now in the network layer, that is our model which is based on Google servers. Okay, here we're gonna do the text based prompt processing and image based prompt messaging. Then we're gonna save it into our database. Okay, and our app, the UI layer will always and always talk to the uh, local database. Okay, and whenever it needs to fetch something, we're gonna tell to the repository that I want something. Okay, the repository will tell the network service. Okay, the network service will take the data back. Once we have the success data, we first put it into the local db. The local db will give it back to the repository, and then only we will gonna give back it to the UI layer. Okay,
Got it, sir.
can you repeat it for me? What, how the process will go ahead?
Sir, once more in short summary, sir, please.
Sorry.
Sir, could you please repeat once again in just in a short summary again?
No problem. I'm gonna showcase the solution right now. Okay, I think based upon or on your knowledge, you have given a broad and a good overview how you gonna create this app. Though some more revisions is needed in order to make it work. Okay, so let me just discuss out the solution that what I have done so far. Okay, let's go through the code base that I have been having here. Okay, so first let's go to the DI layer. Okay, just a second. If you wanted, you can take a break for a water sip. Give me a minute. Cool. Harsh, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So now just relax, okay, and try to observe as many things as possible in next 20 minutes. Okay, we're gonna see how we have made this app so far and what things we can improve in future. Okay, so let's first go through the DI layer and understand what we have done to define our objects. Okay, so first I have created a chat db where I have given this Gemini database. Okay, this Gemini database is nothing but an abstract class defined two DAOs. Okay, one DAO is to maintain the chats entity, another DAO is to maintain the channel entity. Okay, now the database has been provided, so I've using this database I've provided the two DAO that I'm gonna use in my local service. Okay, uh, coming to the local service, I have created a interface local service which generally act as a cache system uh, for our application. which do this much of operations. Okay, the operations involve fetching the channels. Okay, once we enter the app, the first thing the local db do is to fetch the channels. Okay, which will be of type flow. Okay, so whenever a new channel get added into the database, I'm gonna observe it and showcase into my UI. Okay, after the operation of a local service is to load the chats. Okay, but to load the chat on to a specific channel, I need a channel id. So I have requested the channel id in the method itself. Okay, now there was a edge case that a chat might contain the images as well. Okay, the chat might contains messages from different channel as well. Okay, so I've created a specific method for just loading the history that I'm gonna provide it to my Gemini model of a respective uh, channel, where I will not include any images. Okay, because uh, the chat module doesn't understand the images, we it only understand the text. Okay, so I've created a specific method for loading the history, because I'm gonna load everything in a one go, so I made it of type list. Okay, and uh, and in this way I can fetch all the uh, history that I wanted to give before sending a new message. Okay, now once a user send a message, I wanted to add that message to my db. Okay, and once the user have create tap on that fab button, I wanted to create a channel. Okay, once anything gets updates to the channel, that is the last message or the time or the image, we can use that via update channel method. Okay, till now, Harsh, are we clear with those important methods? This is the backbone of the application, this interface.
Yes, sir, got it.
Cool. Now, as you were saying that we don't want to make it a um, don't want to make it a interface, rather a class with our own methods. Indeed, you can do so, but having a interface that gets implemented by a class, in that way you can always make your code more testable. Okay, now you can use these methods, and you can use those methods, provide your own uh, interface or implementation of your dependency, and then test your things. Okay, now having an implementation of interface, we are sure that we have given a contract to this class, and this class will be responsible for giving us the output. Okay, so my local service implementation depends upon the two DAO. Okay, let's have a look into the DAO. Okay, before looking into the DAO, let's have a look into the entities. Okay, how I have defined it. Okay, let's close the other parts. Okay, so in entity, I have defined the message id as a int type, which is auto generic, because as we discussed, the message will keep on happening. Okay, the relation is something like one to many relation, where uh, a channel is one. Okay, a channel is one, and this channel can have thousands and thousands of message, right? So it's a one to many relation, right? So I cannot provide unique IDs to those thousand message separately, right? That will be a nightmare for me, right? So I provided that uh, uh, complex task to roomdb, that this will be my primary key, please auto generate it. It will be of type int. So the roomdb will take care if this id exists or doesn't exist or something. Okay, we have put time in the form of string. uh, we have took date, in the form of date. Okay, ideally, Harsh, you mentioned a better approach. We should have um, saved the timestamp of type long instead of these two complex things. Okay, but here my thinking was that if a message in a day we can make lots of message. Okay, and we can then define the time at the below of each message and a header based on the dates. Okay, and then we can do many filtration based on that. Okay, but there is always a better way of handling time and date in roomdb. Okay, now because we have defined it a date type is not supported by room, we have to define the converter. Okay, so if you go to the database, Gemini database, I have created a date converter which converts a, a date to a type long and save it in the form of long. And when we retrieve the time, it takes the long value and convert it to the date. Okay, you can do this using type converters. We have discussed in a proper detail in our previous classes. Okay, similarly, room database doesn't allow of type list. Okay, so to do so, what we have done, we have defined another list converter which convert a list to a string. Okay, and string back to the list. Okay, for that we have used the Kotlin serializable JSON decoding here. Okay, uh, now the message, the content we will be having, the participant, and the most important part, that is the foreign key. Right, I have defined a foreign channel id which will be a unique UUID, uh, which is coming from here. ओके, हमने इसको यूनिक आईडी इसलिए बनाई है क्योंकि हम रूम पे डिपेंड नहीं करना चाहते चैनल आईडी बनाने के लिए। हम चैनल आईडी खुद से बनाएंगे बिकॉज आई वांटेड टू हैव मोर कंट्रोल ओवर दिस चैनल आईडी, एंड आई डोंट वांट रूम टू create it for me. Okay, now channel id also contains a reference to message id. Okay, and the last updated time for it. Okay, so here the foreign key is the message id and here the foreign key is the channel id. In the session when we were learning about the databases SQL generally, we have talked about foreign keys in a proper detail. Okay, uh now we have understood the entities. Let's go back to the DAO. Okay, now I'm saying load the chats on the base of foreign id of channel. So I provided the channel id and just fetched the chats based on the selected foreign id, foreign channel id. Okay, so if I have clicked the if I've clicked this thread, I wanted to fetch the text based on this channel ID only. If I've selected this, I just wanted to fetch from this uh, from this thread only. Okay, so for that we have to make this changes. Okay, for the history part, as I mentioned, we don't want to include things where the image is present. We only want messages which doesn't contain images. Okay, we will get back to that later. Similarly, this add message is very simple. It's of type insert where we just add a message. Okay, now let's have a look into the channel DAO, which is the most important one. So what I am doing, I am combining the channel entity with the message entity and created a new entity called channel with message. I'm combining to this thing using this data that I've got from this document, that if you wanted to create a relation between objects in room, you can do so by having two approaches. Okay, so I have used this immediate intermediate data class approach, where I will create a new data class. I will create a new data class. Okay, which will containing the field that I needed. But in order to populate that, I need to write some complex SQL queries. Okay, so you might remember when we were learning about SQL, we were able to select particular columns and get some output, right? So DAO works as the editor that we have in MySQL. Whatever output we are getting, we are storing it uh, in a new data class, which is our channel with the message data class. Okay, so this channel with message is been used in the channel screen here, where I'm populating the channel ID, the last message, this one, the date, this one, and the image. Okay, it because the image can be null for the text based approach, I put it a nullable here. Okay, but this thing is coming with the fusion of channel entity and the message entity. There are various ways to combine two entities. You can have a look, but for for my use case, I thought creating a new data class and holding some values over it seems more easy approach for me. So what I did, whatever the data I needed, I defined it in this query, and I said I wanted to fetch all those things from channel and message and entity. Okay, where channel ID is equal to the foreign ID. This channel ID is coming from the channel entity, and this foreign channel ID is coming from the message entity. So you see the relation. मैं चैनल और मैसेज को ऐड कर रहा हूँ। ऐड करते वक्त जो जो डेटा की मेरे को नीड है, उसको मैं क्वेरी में लिख रहा हूँ, एंड उस चीज को होल्ड करने के लिए आई हैव क्रिएटेड अ न्यू डेटा क्लास. ओके, so I'll recommend, if someone is getting confused here, to read about more over in the documentation. Okay, and within just few hit and trials you will able to understand. Okay, nevertheless I will be providing the code base. Okay, but it's important to have a read, and then only you will be able to understand. But the moral concept is that we are attaching two entities in order to create a new data object which hold only the things that we require. By this way, we are uh, we are avoiding saving duplicates data in our database. Okay, if I show you the app inspection of our current database, you can see this is our chat db, contains the channel. uh, this is been detached. Let me attach to this the running app. You can see we have six messages having the unique IDs with the type and the date stamp. Some message contains images, some not, but every message contained a message contained, by whom it has been sent, and the foreign channel ID. Okay, so if you see, this top four message contains the same channel ID, and the below two contains the different channel ID, which we have generated from ourselves. Okay, and if you go to the channel, you can see the message ID, the last message ID is been changing, so that we can fetch the last message ID and showcase it in our UI over here. Okay, uh, something like this. Okay, now if you all have understood this part, uh, then congratulations, you understand the 80% of the application. Okay, but there is one more thing that I wanted to showcase you, that is the repository. Okay, now before moving to that, let's have a look into this, uh, the network service implementation. As I was saying, the Gemini module will be different for different models. So if I wanted to use the chat model, I need to use the Gemini Pro version. And if I wanted to use the image module, I need to give the model name of this, the Pro Vision latest model. Okay, because in here the both the return type is of type generative model. I have given it the qualifier with the named annotation, which is the generate chat generate model and image generate model. So in the network layer, when I'm injecting it, I am giving it a name so that my dependency injection framework, that is the Dagger Hill, will easily will evaluate. Yes, if a person developers want to send a message, मेरे को generative model ही use करना है, ना कि image model, to get a better output. Okay, so if you have a same return type and you wanted to create two objects using it, you will use the name qualifier. Okay, now my repository as usual, talking to local service and network service. Okay, so if I show you the important thing here, let's go with the send message मेथड. सो जैसे ही मैं सेंड मैसेज मेथड को कॉल कर रहा हूँ हमारे व्यू मॉडल से, आई एम फर्स्ट एडिंग द मैसेज दैट वाज सेंड बाय द यूजर टू द डेटाबेस. ओके, then I'm loading the history, whatever the history is mean in this table with the same channel id. I'm fetching it over here. Okay, and uh, I'm using the network service to send a message. Okay, so let's have a look here. Okay, here I am sending a message. We generally uh, create get us a chat type object. Okay, and इस chat में मैं history content दे रहा हूँ. Okay, this thing is already been discussed in our last class. Okay, so आप जितनी अच्छी इसको हिस्ट्री प्रोवाइड करोगे उतना अच्छा आपको ये रिस्पॉन्स देगा, राइट. एंड इन ऑर्डर टू प्रोवाइड हिस्ट्री यू वांटेड टू सेव द हिस्ट्री. ओके, and once it is saved you can always fetch it and give it to your history content. Okay, and uh, uh, you will always check if the history content doesn't contain any images. Okay, and while giving the history you will also mention that it is by the user or by the model. Okay, and then you give the text to it. Okay, that what prompt you wanted to have a look into. Okay, here with the message content. Now this thing is normal, like how we used to do. Once we get the gpt response, we're gonna check whether it is not null. If it is not null, then how we have saved the message of a user, we're gonna save the message of a model as well. So once we do that, if I create a new channel, see here the entities for everything is empty. I'm gonna say, hey, I want to learn more about Android, from where I can start. Okay, so if I do the hit send, oh, something got break. Let's see. Uh, why it is showing the progress indicator thing? Let me run it and see. Before this call, I was making some changes. I might have not. Okay. Not this one. Let's try again. I wanted to learn about Android. Hmm. This is a little strange. I might have used some progress indicator somewhere and have might be forget to delete it. Let me have a look in the chat screen. Let me see. Yeah, some material three things have been imported that we are not using. Let's remove it. Let's remove this app as well. So whenever you wanted to show a demo to someone, the thing's gonna crash. No worries. Proceed. Create a new channel. Hey, I wanted to learn about Android in detail. Okay, so this is the text which haven't been proceed anything here. Okay, once I wanted to, I gonna click this send this button, it will call the send message method. Okay, so once this send message method get called, this add message get called. Okay, so let me put the database inspector here as well. Okay, currently it is empty. So if I do the send message, you can see this uh, this message got updated in the room db as as soon as I send the send message via this call. Okay, I'm not sure why the it is crashing suddenly. The things were working fine. Maybe I'm done with the limit of the Gemini hdk. Why are you crashing the app? Let's see. I'm not sure. I'm even not getting a crash reason for it. Hmm. But anyway, we I need to have a look into that. We gonna I gonna fix this. Have a more investigation and see what things causing the issue. But the whole point is that whenever you send a message, you first save it to the DB, then you make the generative part from the model, and once you get the success response, you're gonna save it into the DB as well with a property update where you say now the participant is of type model. Okay, similarly you're gonna do for the image as well, but here I am saving the image as strings. Okay, then converting it to bitmap, and then I'm providing the content to my network service, the content that it required. And once I get the success response, I'm saving that data into the DB as well. Once you able to do it using in the view model, using in the view model is pretty easy. You gonna call the collect latest message, where you gonna fetch the history. So once the DB get updated with the new message, this callback will get called automatically for you. Once the callback is called and we have some few checks, we update our chat list UI object with the new item. Once the new item has been updated, we get shown the UI. Okay, so basically the UI layer is not the issue. The issue is with our repository layer, how well we defined our repository. Okay, how well we defined our repository, and how well we can architect in order to make it scalable and achieve more features. Okay, uh, in today's class you understood how building an Android application can be little tedious, that you not only have to deal with the UI performance security stuff, you have to also deal with the architecture stuff, how well you define your data. Okay, uh, the most of the things that we discussed today was already been taught in our last 2 3 weeks. Okay, we have created this app using that learning only. Okay, but I will be providing you the code base of it, so that you can explore. There are certainly more and more things into this, but we have discussed like the 80 to 90% of the things that are required in order to build this application. Okay, with that being said, I'm gonna stop the presentation, and I'm been here for a couple of minutes. If Harsh, if you have any doubts, we can discuss it right away, or else we can call it for the day and end the session.
No doubts. No.
Okay, if you're good to go, then I think we can wrap the session and see you all on Monday. We're gonna start with coroutines. Okay, so see you soon. Happy weekend. Bye bye.